Welcome to the Re-Up Men's Podcast with Tim Brown. I'm Brandon Porter. We're glad that you're with us. Re-Up is here to help men be the man God wants them to be. You can learn more about this ministry at reuppodcast.com. Well, Tim, we're going to start by talking about some do-overs in life. I'm sure you have some. We all have some do-overs that we would love to go back and catch in our younger days. What's a do-over maybe that comes to your mind?
Well, I'd love to get a do-over for the last 45 seconds of the state semi-football championship game in 1980.
Yeah.
82, when we didn't have any timeouts and we were on the 3-yard line and we're not able to stop the clock because it was fourth down. I couldn't spike the ball and we couldn't get a play off and failed to score, so we got beat 20-14 and didn't make it to the state championship game. So that'd be one of them.
Yeah.
And then, as an adult, I think most of us that have had kids and now that are grown, my oldest son will be 40 in August and my youngest son will be 37 later this year. And so there's lots of do-overs there as a dad. I'd like to have back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another chance. So I think that would be the biggest ones.
Yeah, I think so.
Except that football game, that'd be another one I'd want. I could get a do-over. I'd like to have it. So.
Yep, definitely understand that. I think for most dads, parenting is something that they'd like to go back and reset on. Probably some guys, things in their marriage that they said or that they didn't say, that they'd love to go back and try to change that.
I've been married 40 years. Mine's been perfect. I haven't had any, haven't said anything or done anything I'd like to do over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
There you go. Well, a verse that has been important to you as long as I've known you is Psalm 90, verse 12. And I thought it might be helpful for us to think about that verse today in the podcast. So let me read that. And I want to read verses 13 and 14 that come after it as well. But that's what we want to think about in this podcast. So Psalm 90, verse 12 says, "So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days." So again, that's Psalm 90, 12, 13, and 14. Why does that verse, specifically there, verse 12, Tim, why does that matter so much to you?
It's when you sent me this last night, I was looking at it, and it's a verse that I've not looked at like I used to back early in my walk and with Re-Up and all that. It was very significant because the very first thing that jumps out at me when I first kind of started to personalize this verse was the first part of verse 12. So teach us to number our days. When I really studied that language of it and just kind of the thoughts that scholars and all that kind of have about it, it's just that it's really helping us realize and be reminded on a daily basis that, our days are numbered.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that number. So every day is important. And every day matters.
Mm-hmm.
So it just really helped me as I was, especially early on in my journey with the Lord, just to really be reminded of the need for intentional focus, intentional thinking. That as a dad, we're talking about parenting as a dad, as a husband, that those days are numbered, and that and my days are numbered to be a dad. My days are numbered to be a father, and I don't need to waste it. One of the things I talk about with Re-Up a lot with men, because trying to get men to react and change and make commitments to growing as men, and becoming the man God made them to be, is that now matters.
Mm-hmm.
So I would even tie in a statement that I heard many years ago that that the man will someday be we're now becoming.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tie that in to teach us to number our days, realize that our days are short.
Mm.
Life is a vapor, and it all matters. So men are really good about saying, well, I'll get to that after this busy season, or once I kind of get my kids to a certain age, or what. It matters now. I mean, every day matters. So that's kind of where that verse really came alive to me and became important to me. And then the second part of that is the importance of pursuing Him, because that's where I get wisdom, and to do it daily, because my days are numbered, and I need to pursue Him, so I would have a heart of wisdom, and His heart is the source of wisdom. So yeah, and you brought in the 13 and 14. When you tie that in with that verse, it makes it even strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, just verse 12 alone for years, it's just been a go-to verse for me, just as a reminder.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that heart of wisdom, to gain a heart of wisdom. And so I think that the first thing to touch on there is that word gain.
Yeah.
Gain is a process word. It's something that comes over time. And so it's not to receive or to get, it's to gain. And so incrementally, step by step. So that's the first thing we'd want to point out there.
Yeah.
In recent podcasts, we've talked about wisdom. And so let's think again about that, to gain a heart of wisdom. And so it's not just numbering your days, as you said, which is extremely right, that our days are numbered and they are limited, but there's a purpose behind that, to be intentional in your days to gain a heart of wisdom. And so what is a heart of wisdom?
Well, I think from my perspective, the version that I use, I've always kind of used for this Psalm 90:12 is, so teach us to number our days so that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. That's the New American Standard version. That's how it states it there. So we may get a heart of wisdom, so we may present to you a heart of wisdom. So that heart of wisdom is something that we don't necessarily just, as you said, we don't just get it. We don't just give it. When we're not, okay, here's a heart of wisdom. It's all the wisdom you'll ever need. Not to worry about pursuing it or whatever. And so I think in that New American Standard version, where it says that we may present to you a heart of wisdom, that is that's an ongoing journey and a verb and an action that we are to. You go read Proverbs about in the Proverbs all about wisdom and all that. It's something that you have to recognize is there. You have to, as we talked about in one of the previous episodes about wisdom, and you have to pursue it, and then the origin of wisdom obviously is Him. And so, I think this psalm to me is a challenge to realize that it never ends. It's something all your days. It's something that never ends. It's something that you're to gain a heart of wisdom, get a heart of wisdom, present it to Him a heart of wisdom. And I just think it's an ongoing thought process that this writer is really trying to, I think, get us to remember that every day matters, and then every day you should grow in wisdom.
Yeah. And that wisdom being learning how to not only walk with God, but to apply what God would have us to do in our lives. And so that gaining is a little bit more today than yesterday.
Absolutely.
Which I think really ties into where we started with those do-overs, because you've had years to think about that game-ending play, and you can think of a number of things you probably would have attempted differently that just weren't in your mind that day, you know?
Yeah, I didn't have the wisdom. I didn't,
right.
I've looked back on it numerous times, and, I'd have gone back 2 plays earlier when it was second down. I would have done something. I would have and I don't know if this is wisdom, but I would have disregarded the play that got called on second down. I've said that ever since I was 17 years old when that happened. I've said that ever since I was 17, that I would have gone back. The play that got sent in on second down, I would have, because my gut told me in the huddle, we don't need to run this play. This other one would work better. based on where we're at, no time left, so, no time out and all that. But I didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so so same thing with my kids. I mean, I look back and yeah, I mean, I've gained wisdom from those mistakes, but I sure would have liked to avoided them altogether if I could back then. But so yeah, there is some value to being able to look back and get wisdom from the things you wish you could have done over and done differently. So I just think that makes this verse even that much stronger, is that it's just, every day,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know how many days you got. So every day's important. They always say, you're supposed to learn something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of what this is saying. I mean, I need to grow in my wisdom, as we talked about in the one or two episodes back about wisdom. One of the greatest definitions of wisdom I think is out there that I kind of applied to my own life is wisdom is true wisdom is being able to look at life
Mm-hmm.
from God's perspective through
Mm-hmm.
His eyes. That's true wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. One of the interesting things, so to go to verse 14, the psalmist writes, satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love. One of the things that we know about David specifically is that he had a real habit of spending time with God, of meditating on God and His Word in the morning. And so you can't help but think that must be what he has in his mind, that satisfies in the morning. It's interesting. It's not just satisfies with time in your Word or with meditation, but it's there that you learn about the steadfast love of God,
Yeah.
of communing with Him. And that's one of the things that Re-Up has talked a lot about over the years, is that intimacy with God, that relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been watching on Amazon Prime. They've got this new deal out there called House of David. I don't even know what studio's doing it or whatever. And we thought, well, we'd watch the first episode and kind of gauge whether or not we wanted to watch more of it. And been very impressed with it. If you've not watched it, it stays pretty true to Scripture. And I mean, obviously they've taken some liberties, just like any entertainment deal does. I love a couple things they've shown in the episodes. This is when David was a teenager, before he, obviously kind of comes on the scene dealing with Goliath and all that. Although one of the episodes shows how when he was anointed by Samuel to be the next king and all that. But I love a couple of the episodes that shown him out with the sheep, and it's like either early in the morning, the sun's just coming up, or it's the sun's going down, and he's laying on his back, like on a rock or whatever, kind of at an angle or whatever, and he's just looking up into the heavens, and he's talking, and he's singing, and he's communicating with God. I love how they've portrayed that, and that's. He was a guy that did that from the time he was a teenager, a kid.
Uh-huh.
They portray him in this series, whether or not it's true or not, that he was kind of the child that the dad didn't want to be around. And so he sent him out to take care of the sheep. And he was away from his brothers and his family. And then they would call him in when they needed him for something or whatever. But, he was kind of just I don't want to say homeless teenager, but just out there on his own, and so he just spent time with the Lord, and so I think that's a great picture of it was relate. You can see that David and the Lord, as he's laying on that rock, or there's intimacy there. I mean, there's real relationship there. It's not okay. Well, I checked it off my list today. Whatever. Oh man, there's true relationship, true intimacy, and David's writing here that's on verse 14. I mean, that's satisfy me in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice, be glad all our days. And so, yeah, I think that intimacy is a lot of men don't like that word, or because they think it's intimacy. Well, that's just what I do with the opposite sex. No, that's even with other men, like a fire team. I mean, that's intimacy. That's a whole different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And, we think intimacy means touchy-feely, the sexual thing. Or no, it's this closeness that is really kind of you can't even describe it. It's so close. And so I think you're right on that's the only way we're going to get that wisdom and gain that heart of wisdom and present the heart of wisdom from the Lord is it's intimacy. You got
Yeah.
to have that relationship. And the guy writing this, he knew that. He
Mhm.
understood that. He lived it. He lived it.
Yeah. So you're a guy who has made his living in sales. Maybe guys who are listening have made their living in construction. There are lots of vocations that when it comes to the morning, you pretty well up and at it pretty early. You're on the move.
Yeah.
And so what are 2 or 3 real life practical tips for the guy who,
Yes.
they don't have 3 hours in the morning before they have to go into work? What are some real practical tips for the busy guy?
Well, I think of one thing pops into mind immediately. Of course, a lot of people may not know this, but you and I are actually in a fire team together
Mm-hmm.
that meets on a Monday morning with 6 other guys. But one of the guys in there, the youngest guy actually in the group, a few years ago when he committed to doing this, he knew he would have to be in the Word every day as well, which is part of what a fire team does. And he normally would be at his office by 8 a.m., 6:30 at the latest. And he and his wife both come from other marriages, so combined mixed family kids. So we got 4 boys, and busy as, I mean, just, you can imagine teenage, this game, this going on, just craziness. So he just said, the only way it's going to work for me was I got to get up at 4 o'clock, and I'll spend 45 minutes or so with the Lord, and then shower, do what I need to do, and be at work, because that's the only time that I can make. But the key thing to that was he realized how important it was.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be the first thing I'd say. You got to understand that I'd almost even go, not important, it's vital to your experiencing the life that the Lord wants you to have, especially as a man. And I've never met a man that just wanted to be a knucklehead. Most men want to be some kind of difference maker. So you got to decide. That'd be the first thing. There is no magic pill, And then the second thing would be something that, again, it's pretty simple. We just forget about it. But years ago, we were at a retreat, and it was when the guy who discipled me, Bob, was still alive, and he did a teaching at this retreat, and then we took a break. But during the teaching, he had mentioned how much time he spends with the Lord every day. And so during the break, this guy goes, "Man, how in the world could you do that? How could you spend that much time?" He said, "Man, that'd be awesome to do that." Well, there was a gentleman standing there with us in the conversation, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you how he does it. He asked the Lord to give him the time, and the Lord gives it to him." And so as we stood there and that guy said that, we kind of all looked at each other like, you know what? When's the last time any of us, if that's what you want to spend an hour with the Lord every day, when's the last time if you could only take 5 minutes to spend with him? But part of that 5 minutes was you just pleaded with him, "Lord, help me figure out how you do it, where I can spend 30 minutes with you." Whatever. Yeah. Number one, that's what the Lord wants. He wants you to spend time with him. And that he knows that's the only way it's going to, what David's writing here, that's you're going to gain this wisdom and be who he's made you to be. And what's interesting is if you ask him that, he'll figure it out for you. And the neat thing is in talking with Bob about that same subject, he would say this. He'd say, you ask him to give you 30 minutes, he'll give you 45 to an hour just to show off. And because that's what he wants. And so my 2 things would be decide how important it is, and then ask the Lord to work it out. Yeah. And there's that verse, we don't have because we don't ask. Don't take that as far as a Lamborghini or something like that. But something as simple as, "Lord, help me figure out how to intimately spend 30 minutes a day with you." You can't tell me he's going to go up there. He's up there going, "Well, I don't know, Brandon. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that or not." He's going to go, "Okay."
Yeah.
But you got to decide that you want that, and you want it, and do it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, that's so encouraging to think about that the Lord He wants us to spend time with Him, but He wants to spend time with us. And so numbering our days, pursuing that heart of wisdom, those are things that God wants for us and with us. And so being encouraged in that. If we can help you in that, know that we're here to do that at ReUp. You can go get some more resources at reuppodcast.com. Hey, listen, make sure to subscribe to this podcast, maybe share it with others. The audio version is on all of your favorite platforms out there, and then the video is at YouTube at the ReUp channel there. And of course, lots and lots of resources at reuppodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening to the ReUp Men's Podcast with Tim Brown. I'm Brandon Porter.